Had an interesting day on the homestead. A lot of grass that looked just like this turned into grass that looked like that. I had started a small fire earlier. I thought it had gone out. Turns out it wasn't actually fully out, and the wind picked up and came out of the woods that way and obviously picked up some embers. And it really ended up burning somewhere around a quarter acre of my property. And unfortunately, as you can see, it was really close to my camper. I heard what sounded like a tire popping, and turns out indeed a tire did pop. Looked out the window of my camper and saw smoke. None of this part had actually burned yet. I keep fire extinguishers pretty much everywhere on the property just in case something happens. I quickly grabbed a couple of the larger ones and began spraying it all over the place. I started on the spot closest to my camper for obvious reasons. My neighbor was actually here elsewhere on the property helping me with the project. He didn't know anything about it, but Minion, before I even came out of the camper, ran over to him and was whining and jumping and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Caused him to look up and grab a shovel, and he was over on this side fighting the fire. I keep a bunch of these shovels everywhere just in case of fighting fire too, because you can throw dirt on a fire and it's extremely effective. Turns out laying pieces of tin on fire works really well too. I have plastic things and other barrels kind of stored away from my building, which I'm really glad for because they actually caught fire too, and that was the part that was most difficult to put out. Actually, the reason my buildings are so far apart is I figured just in case one of them happens to catch on fire, hopefully I won't lose another one. But obviously a grass fire can kind of threaten everything. If I would have noticed the fire sooner, I probably would have taken these hoses, hooked them up to my nozzle that's right on the outside of the camper, and used that. I'm glad I was somewhat prepared to fight fires. However, it's totally my fault the fire broke out. It was my own ignorance and dumbness, or whatever you want to say. It's much better to prevent fire than to use your fire safety measures that you have in place, but I'm only human, and hopefully I completely remember exactly how this went down and respect fire a lot more. From posting this all on social media, I actually learned that fighting grass fires, you can actually use a leaf blower, and I have a leaf blower, so I'm going to keep that much more handy and remember that the next time. Hopefully never, but if it happens, I'll have that tool at my disposal too. Glad I got it stopped. It could have been a much more painful lesson than it was. Nothing was really lost. I lost a couple fire extinguishers and a tire and a few pieces of plastic. If you're watching this, make sure you learn this lesson from me instead of learning it yourself like I did. While it happens to stick better, it's a whole lot better to learn the lesson from somebody else who did something dumb than when you do something dumb.